I'll now pass it to Jörn. Jörn is a consultant on blockchain, smart contracts, and GDPR. Please. He has a major in law and computer science, and he lectures at the University of Geneva and the Geneva Schools of Diplomacy. He also contributed to the European Commission Blockchain Observatory report on blockchain and the GDPR. So Jörn will share his view on whether blockchain is a threat to privacy or a tool to provide better privacy.
Thank you. What is the biggest threat to our privacy? What do you think? Facebook. Yes, Facebook is one of them. Just think, some years before, we had Edward Snowden, and we looked at NSA as a major threat. And if you think, just some weeks ago, there was a publication that there was a leak of millions, hundreds of millions of user records. So we have a lot of threats to our privacy. But what do they have in common? The internet, maybe, yes. Yeah, lots of data, centrally controlled. Lots of data, centrally controlled, is just a recipe for abuse of this data. So what can we do against it? We can decentralize. And when we decentralize, we are looking at blockchain. So this is the reason why blockchain can help with privacy. But wait a moment. Privacy also means the right to be forgotten, doesn't it? And we also have learned that blockchain means immutability. How does this work together? Well, just think about a record of personal data. If you put this record of personal data on the blockchain, it will stay there. You can't delete it. It's not what you want. So we use cryptographic hashes. This is some kind of digital fingerprint of data. So we generate this digital fingerprint, and this digital fingerprint will always change if the data changes. So with this digital fingerprint, you can make sure that the data is not changed. But from the digital fingerprint, you cannot reconstruct the data. So what do we do? We put the digital fingerprint on the blockchain, and we store the data in some decentralized storage. For the next record, we do the same thing. We put the fingerprint, the digital fingerprint, on the blockchain, and we store it at another place, and so on. So if you want to delete some data now, you delete it, and the fingerprint becomes useless. But still, you don't have to trust those storage containers, because you always have the proof whether the data is authentic or not on the blockchain, because the blockchain is immutable. And this is the way you can use blockchain, immutable blockchain, to foster privacy. Where can this be used? We can use it, for example, for health data. We can use it for supply chain management. We can use it for university diplomas or other certificates. And we also can use it for privacy coins, for private monetary transactions. Of course, the private monetary transactions, they use some more technology, some more secure crypto technology like zero-knowledge proofs or ring signatures. This means with blockchain, we are able to respect the right to be forgotten and can foster privacy. So, Gianfranco, you said there are problems with privacy, and I agree, in many cases there might be problems, but you can solve those problems with the right architecture, with the right design, and you really have to choose the right design from the start. Because with blockchain, you can't change it afterwards because it's immutable. And of course, you can't just fix it by creating a privacy clause. You really have to choose the right architecture, and then blockchain can foster privacy. Thank you.
So, Jörn, you talked about the fact that blockchain maybe has been used for a lot of projects where this technology actually provided not real benefit. But you designed and implemented blockchain projects for the University of Geneva for certifying the diplomas. Can you tell us why you used blockchain for this?
Well, blockchain is about trust. The Economist, some years ago, ran a story, blockchain is a trust machine. But do we need new trust for universities? We trust the university, and it's basically the university that provides the certificate. We don't need additional trust. Wait a moment. Imagine you have a university diploma from a small university. You're happy, you graduated, you get your first job. 10 years later, you change your job, but the university doesn't exist anymore. So you need some additional proof. And this proof can be provided by the blockchain. So for any blockchain application, you really have to ask yourself, is there a reason for blockchain? Because blockchain is not an efficient technology, but if there's a reason, it can serve very well. So what we do with the diplomas? We put the hashes on the blockchain.
Thank you. And are diplomas considered personal data? And how do you deal with privacy, if yes?
Yes, they are personal data. And we have some special situations where we have to revoke diplomas. So first you might say, well, blockchain is immutable. How can I revoke a diploma? Well, basically you don't revoke the diploma, but you add another entry connected to the first entry so that everybody that looks up the first entry can see that there's a second entry. So for the original diploma, it means only those who already have the information, who already have the diploma, can verify the diplomas on a blockchain. When there's a revocation, of course, this is a new information, which is personal data. But then again, this information will only be provided to those who have the original diploma, who have a copy of the original diploma and can verify it. So they will verify it, and then they have a right to know that this diploma has been revoked. And we provide this right only to this information only to those people who have the right to know. And this is very important for data protection, that you provide the information exactly to those people that have a right to know. And the idea of technical data protection, of blockchain, is that you basically code this limitation into the system, so you don't have to trust operators so much that they will not abuse the data. So even if there is a hack on this organization, they will not be able to leak the data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any questions from the audience? So let me start with one, and I'll ask it to Jörn. Jörn, one of the main priorities of regulators is to combat financial crime and money laundering. Why should we want to have anonymous payments?
Well, that's a good question. But often we have different priorities and we have to combine them, and they might be conflicting. So we need privacy, of course. At the same time, we need to combat money laundering. In the future, we might not have cash anymore. And does it serve money laundering when every small transaction is visible? No, it doesn't. So we have to balance it, and we need to have privacy for small transactions, and we need to have transparency for larger transactions. And with blockchain, we can even make sure that you can't just combine a lot of small transactions into one big transaction, and you can enforce the limits for secret small transactions. So we have to balance the different interests, and we can implement it accordingly.
How would you define small and big?
Well,
Are you going for it once?
Because it's subjective.
of course, it's subjective, and of course, you need to make a decision in society, and technology cannot make the decision for you. Society has to make the decision, and with current banking laws, we have a decision that below a certain threshold, we have less duties than above a certain threshold, and the same thing we need to apply to blockchain.
Thank you. Thank you.